Gaming NBS episode 171 coming to you Wednesday, December 27th, 2017. Welcome to Gaming NBS, an RPG podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Sean.
And I'm Brett. Welcome to the show. Welcome back, folks. Glad to have you all here. Well, Sean, how was your Christmas, man? It's post-Christmas.
It was just grand.
Was it awesome?
It was, man.
So
yours?
Not bad. Not bad. All my kids were here. I had all 5 of them. My
it must have been just a big family shindig.
It was. Lots of shenanigans.
Shenanigans.
Many shenanigans.
Irish it in the works again.
So I know. So for me, Christmas is more for the kids than it is for me even now because I generally don't get presents. I give presents. I don't care to get because normally at this point in my life, if I want some, like, oh, that'd be really nice, I just order it. Like I was sitting there yesterday after Christmas and the kids were reading their books and playing with their stuff. I'm like, I should buy Xanathar's Guide. I don't have that yet, but I just don't. I don't have a list. I don't ask people for stuff. It doesn't happen.
Nobody shops better. Nobody shops better for me than me.
Pretty much. That's kind of how I look at it. My kids, they get me. I like Moscow Mules, so they got me some nice copper mugs, which is fun. But it's one of those things like, oh, it's a small thing. I could have bought that myself. Nice they were thinking of me. But for me, mostly it's about the kids getting cool shit. My wife and I, if we see something like, hey, I could really use that. Why don't you go buy that, honey? Oh, that's a good idea. I'll go do that. There you go.
That's the beauty of adulting. That's the only advantage of adulting and disposable income.
Yeah, and I get to eat dessert first if I feel like it.
And you can eat dessert whenever you want, how much in quantity you want.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The only person that stopped me from eating all the cookies is my wife, and she has to catch me first. So there you go.
Let's see. Yeah.
Excuse me.
You're still sick?
Yeah, a little bit. Not bad, though. The cough is starting to go down.
You're not drinking enough whiskey.
I know. I'm down to vodka, I'm feeling. It's poor man's cough syrup.
I've never heard anybody drinking vodka for a cold.
No, I know. That's why I'm saying I'm out of whiskey, so I feel bad. Anyway, shall we on with it?
Yeah, let's get on with it.
So, January 5, 6, and 7, if you've heard me say it once, you'll hear it one more time, is EverCon. Our pre-reg and all that is closed, but tickets still available at the door. Plenty of really good stuff going on. I think we've got 210-plus events happening. So, this is... Shit, dude, this is next week. Next week, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, 5, 6, and 7. First full week in January, I will be up in Wausau, Wisconsin, my hometown. Evercon.org for all the details, and hope to see you all there. I know we've got some BSers showing up, so that'll be really cool. And, should be a damn good con, so hope to see folks there. If you do see me running around like a chicken with my head cut off, and I don't have the time to stop and have a beer and hang out with you as much as I'd like, it's simply because I'm running from one con crisis to another and trying to make it so no one notices. Which, after talking with Alex and the boys from Gamehole Con, that's pretty much the art of the con runner, is making sure no one notices how incredibly back office something is fucked up. So, anyway, we'll get that squared away. Sean, any announcements on your side?
Nope. I don't think I have a single announcement.
Well, it's late in the year. We're tired. We're old.
I spent all mine.
Spent all my announcements. I got nothing left.
I had them all during the year, and now I'm out of them.
Now I'm out. All right, so let's random encounter.
All right. Oh, my God, that's low. Almost went through the other door. That was much quieter. All right, who's starting this thing off?
You're going to have to.
Oh, I'm going to have to, he says. All right. This is from Michael Drescher. Hey, guys, I was the guy who ran the Amnesia campaign in Fate, which was a total hit with the players. So that's where I heard it from. Because everything I know, I hear it from somebody. None of the stuff I come up with is my own.
Yeah.
It's like let me come up with this idea. Oh, I totally got it from somebody else.
There's nothing wrong with stealing perfectly good ideas. And by God, this is a perfectly good idea.
So Michael is referring, when I talked about it last time in emergent storytelling, the example I came up with is like creating your backgrounds in a situation where all the player characters don't know who they are, and then they discover themselves through play, therefore creating their kind of character. And so Michael was the one where he ran this at, I think, GameholeCon, right, Michael? Michael nods.
Yes, of course he did. Yes,
virtually.
yes.
So that's what he's referring to. However, the reason I'm writing is because Fate has emergent character creation and development, which I think somebody's going to bring up later too. You could start out leaving some aspects blank to fill in later, as well as stunts. In addition, during many milestones, you can rename one of your aspects to better suit your character. At more major world-shaking milestones, you can rename your high concept, which to me provides a far more enriching character due to the constant evolution of the character. Better yet, it's built into the system. I've been so happy with how Fate characters are never just mere stat blocks. I would also argue that no matter what RPG you're playing, the quote-unquote fluff is the character. The stats and skills simply reinforce said character. Keep up the awesome podcast as always. May your sword stay sharp and your wit stay sharper.
I like that, Michael. I think you're right. The fluff essentially is the character, and the stats and skills are there simply to back up and support that concept. I like that. I like that statement. That's good stuff.
Yeah.
All
Thanks,
right.
Thanks, Michael.
Yeah, Michael. Thanks, man. Sky Slayton wrote in and emailed us on episode 170, the previous one. So first, let me tell you that I'm an UPS driver, and it's 2 days before Christmas. I had to stop to write this email as soon as the episode was over.
That's crazy, right?
That is
there.
crazy. So that means if someone on Sky's route didn't get their gift, we're sorry. We apologize.
There you
it's
go.
our fault. It's late.
That's right.
I agree with Sean. Oh no.
Whoop.
I don't think I can continue reading. Hang on.
Hey, wait a minute. We got to keep track. This is what I was talking about last week. I alluded to.
All right, so we're
Sorry. Okay.
One for Sean.
Sean, 1. Brett, goose egg.
Oh, all right. So I agree with Sean, says Sky, the madman that he is. To the point that I was not even sure Brett was really serious. Were you just playing devil's advocates for the podcast? Oh, Sky, to the heart.
Role reversal.
God damn, right to the bone he cuts me. The major point I think everything diverged on was this. Mechanics are different than fluff. It doesn't matter what the mechanics are. Doesn't matter what the mechanics are. They are different than the story you grow on their pergola frame. So as far as I see it, the second half of the main discussion was essentially Sean saying what I just said and Brett disagreeing. Yeah, you're probably right there.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Games without a specific mechanic for social connections where the GM rules on whether or not a fluff detail will cause a mechanical effect, those details are still fluff, and the effect that they have is DM fiat. The first half was an order of operations disagreement. It can be fun to build your character on the fly, but if you limit these times and sessions, you can change something is essentially the same as just rebuilding your character at a certain point. I use the AL rule that until level 4, you can change your character. I personally added one other restriction that it can only be changed twice. And to agree with Sean, there were where you weren't born doesn't matter in D&D. Who you know doesn't matter.
Must have been on fire last week.
I don't know what's happening. There's some fucking bizarro world here. If you can swap out the info for any other proper noun of that type, it doesn't matter mechanically. Was that TIDR? Sean was more clear in what he said, and I agree with his perspective. Building character stats over the course of gameplay and letting someone rebuild a PC has no real difference in D&D. Unless the system assigns story details and mechanical value, they don't matter mechanically. That being said, I also ask my players to build the game world details, aka fluff, with me as we play. But that's not a mechanical thing if it's fluff. It's the skin on the Terminator. The metal exoskeleton is the mechanics. The Terminator works fine without the skin, but the skin is nothing without the robot. Anyway, enjoying the show. Brett, hope you feel better. Sky. Well, Sky, I was feeling better until you cut me just like that.
I mean, sometimes the truth is greater than fiction.
I'm really disillusioned with Sky right now.
Don't worry. I think it comes back around.
Something's got him.
Steve Orlick emails us. Okay, guys, let me tell you something I tried at the beginning of my homebrew 5e campaign. I've mentioned quite a few times in emails to the show that my wife is a very casual player, only in it for the family time. Every game she played prior to this sprawling campaign, she was the healer because, quote, she's a mom. That's what I do. Take care of people, end quote. That's fine, but at the start of this campaign, I wanted her out of that comfort zone. This is role-playing, not to be a mom. So I came up with an opening encounter designed to leave choices up to her that would lead to her class. It wasn't easy. I probably could have done it better, but it was basically a lot of weapons lying around the house. A large dog, voices in her head, her emotional state, etc. In the end, she had grabbed the woodcutting axe by the fireplace and flew in a rage at the orcs who had killed her husband and infant. Barbarian it is. All choices were her own throughout the encounter, and that's how it went. Her hatred of orcs is a major cornerstone of the campaign. That being said, I feel that emergent character creation can work, but can only go on for so long. Maybe a level or two at most. In my games, I give people to change their character at level 3. That's where you become a specialist in your class. I think that works better than the ongoing creation angle. I think after that point, it becomes character growth as opposed to character creation. You can multi-class, change the personality stuff and backgrounds as you go through life in the campaign, etc. So that's my thoughts on the subject. Hope they're worth something. Keep the BS coming. Steve Orlick.
That's good stuff, Steve. I do like the way you. I like that approach to getting your wife, in this case, out of her comfort zone a little bit. And I'll tell you what, that barbarian who hates orcs because they killed her family, that is a much more potent in-game reason because it happened in-game. The truth is on the table. And there it is. Everybody saw it, knew it, felt it. Yeah, there's a reason why she hates orcs and why she's a barbarian. So that's totally awesome. That's really well done. All right, CrimFan comments on the blog. Not sure if you have the book, but one of the last White Wolf books appears in a friendly local gaming store was World of Darkness Mirrors. Had a bunch of alternate character building options, including one that involves holding points back, to be spent later from a fixed total. When you have points held back, you also have more luck. The system would be pretty good for an emergent type of game. It's a cool book worth checking out. Example of a way you might have characters work this way in fiction is the original Star Wars. Luke would have held a fair number of points back, while Han and Chewbacca were much more set and committed. I've not looked at that book, CrimFan, but I do like me some World of Darkness, so I think I will have to see if I can scan myself a copy of Mirrors. Very cool. Thanks, man.
Yeah. All right. Avi. He comments on episode 170 via G+. It's common in Fate to have characters with just the top skills assigned and the bottom 2/3 of skills not assigned until it comes up in play. It's one of the options in the core book. Augie. Darn it, you.
Oh, we got a cat attack. That's a cat.
The guy's driving me crazy. My squirt bottle is in my bathroom. I got to go and grab it pretty soon. I apologize.
Carry on.
Carrying on. What Sean was missing is that character background is relevant fictional positioning. In D&D 5e, fictional positioning can grant advantage or disadvantage for a role. So there is mechanical tie-in for character background, or fluff as Sean put it. At our table, we let players change their character pretty extensively for the first 3 to 4 sessions. After that, it is frowned upon to change character beyond what is in the rules, except for tweaks that remain true to how they have been playing the character. So that's where, Michael and Avi obviously,
they're a lot more fluent in Fate than we are.
I think that goes without saying.
Absolutely goes without saying.
But I thought it was kind of because Michael's, I think he is on G+, but I don't know if he saw Avi's comments because he wasn't in the same thread. So it's kind of funny that two people both chimed in with Fate consistently saying, hey. And then, of course, Avi's like commenting on my fluff piece.
Yeah, but no one said Brett's right. They just said Sean's right.
Well,
so right now,
we could call it.
I'm a little hurt. Although I gotta say, I've got the edge from so many episodes. I could let you have one.
Well,
I could let you have a win.
I mean, It doesn't happen often
Yeah, that's true.
because Brett talks more. So when Brett talks more, I can't bring up a point. Therefore, I always lose. All right, my odds of losing are exponentially higher.
That's true. That is a technique I use. It's a rhetorical technique, as in I just
It
keep
is.
talking
It's a-
so you can't
it's a
get it
d-
in a word.
It's a debate technique that Brett uses fairly well. Although I tend not to thwart it very well either.
Oh well.
He's coughing. He's
That's
drinking.
okay.
He's
That's
clearing
all
his
right.
throat. All right. So good stuff. Thank you for everybody commenting on the last episode.
What I think is really interesting out of all of that is
I don't know.
is, Sean, that everybody modifies their characters. That's, I mean, not everybody, broad statement, but everyone who wrote in and what I saw online, and I don't know if anybody said anything on the webpage besides Crimfan, excuse me, but it sounds like most people and a lot of the gamers I game with and have played with over the years are all in favor of you start with character and then you modify them after a couple sessions just to make sure it's what you want it to be. I wonder if does anybody hold still and say no, you can't do that. I'm sorry, that's your character too fucking bad. I mean, that's hardcore old school, right? Where you're like, no, you made that character too bad. You rolled a wizard, you're a fucking wizard. You know, if you don't want him, hope he dies. Otherwise, you have a wizard. Off you go. I wonder how many
I don't
people
know.
actually hold the line and just say no, you can't modify the character.
I bet
that's
you
too
that
bad."
Hobbs guy does. I bet you he's a frickin' stickler.
Yeah, he's probably a bastard like that.
Oh, I bet a total SOB.
Yeah, totally. Absolutely. Well, we know him. I mean, it's just it's par for the
3d6
course.
down 3d6 down the road.
Yeah, exactly. 3d6, throw out the highest die. That's how he plays. He's just tough. He's hardcore.
3d6 throw out the highest die.
He's
Holy
tough.
shit.
He's hardcore, man.
Max of 12.
He's
Holy
hardcore.
shit.
He doesn't fuck around. He's tough.
No,
Anyway.
but probably very fair.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
I think his middle name is Fair.
It probably is.
Jason Hobbs from Hobbs and Friends of the OSR.
Yeah. Anyway, I think that's interesting. I wasn't certain. You and I have talked about, hey, can I modify my character afterwards? Yeah, sure. And it seems to be kind of just an assumed thing in many groups from what I can tell. And I'm wondering if somebody out there is saying, no, that's not what we do. You made unless the mechanics allow it, you are not allowed. I wonder who plays like that.
Well, and I think that us game masters, you know, you and I and the rest of the folks that kind of probably listen to the show, they're probably pretty easygoing peeps. Like nobody I've met or talked to or interacted with come across with an iron fist. Now, I think we could work on that in 2018.
We could make that a goal. No, we will be bigger dicks in 2018. I swear.
I think as game masters, we need to step up a little bit. Maybe put the fist down every once in a while. You know, maybe a yes and turns into a maybe yes but. Or no but.
Or a hell no. Maybe. So maybe we go that far.
Yeah. Hell. We'll start with hell no before we get to fuck no.
Exactly. Yeah, you ease into that one. You don't just
Right.
go right for the throat.
No. Something to shoot for, folks. If you find yourself being a little too flexible, and your players are kind of like,
You think they're walking on you?
yeah, that's right. If they're walking on you, feel taken a little advantage of, and don't stand for that shit.
No. Kick some ass, man.
Right. You don't have to lay a 45 on the table like Brett does.
No, that's only for very special circumstances.
Well, Brett's dealing with guys that have 20 years of like adapting to Brett.
Exactly.
So he does have to pull out literally the big guns.
Well, at this point, they have a resistance to bullets at this point, so it's tougher.
Yeah.
It's tougher to wound them.
Right.
All right, shall we carry on? Let's get to the topic.
Let's get into the main topic. All right, Brett.
Well, I'll tell you, last time Andy Hall wrote into us was talking about exploration as kind of a theme / driver behind RPG campaigns. And I believe he had mentioned, like the Skyrim concept of this true sandboxy, even Fallout 4. He mentioned some follow-ups to us. We got a host of stuff. Andy, you basically wrote all the talking points for Sean and I to hit at through this thing. So thank you for building the show notes for us, Andy. This is awesome.
Yeah, we're just going to read what Andy says and make it sound like we came up with this.
Just like as Sean said earlier, someone else had a better idea than we had. We're going to steal it and pretend it's ours. And just before we got on the mics, I told Sean, I said, there is, take the Lewis and Clark thing, or the concept of, Vikings looking for lands, or anybody who's ever looked at a map with a big blank space and said, I'm going to find out what's over there. Or the king pays you, or the queen says, hey, go forth and find a better way to India. Go find a way to the heart of Africa. Hey, go find this thing for me. Or whatever it is. There is more to, how do I say this? So being an explorer is not, sometimes you're going looking for the Fountain of Youth, or you're looking for Allah's Aztec Gold City, or something crazy like that. But in a lot of cases, it was simply like, I don't know where this river goes. I think it goes to the ocean at some point. It'd be nice to know if we could float logs and other goods down there, because it'd be easier to get them to the sea than overland travel. Let's go see if this works. And a lot of times it was kind of, those people who were doing it would not say boring, but from a standard D&D spacey, like looking for stuff, there's no, apart from encountering potentially hostile natives or people who live in the area who you have to deal with or trade with and so on, you're basically just mapping. In the truest sense of the word, a hex crawl of a empty sheet of graph paper, of hex paper, and you're trying to figure out what's in every space, and what's the easiest way to get over the Iron Tooth Mountains. And there's really not much more to it than that. It's a life and death struggle in many cases, as people are trying to find out where the trapping was good or where the gold was and so forth. But just raw exploration for the sake of finding out what's there. Sean, I have never run a game with that type of theme. There's been like, hey, go in there because we think there's a dragon horde. We think there's a lost ruins. We think there's a dungeon there of some kind, right? If I use dungeon as just a focal point for the adventure where there's monsters, NPCs, whatever. There's a thing there. There's a lost wizard's tower. You go exploring for a specific thing. Not so much as, hey, you're going to explore to map out this water course or map the right passes through the Iron Tooth Mountains or anything. Have you done anything like that, Sean? Has that been... Because I know you've tried hex crawl stuff before and so on. Is that... What do you think? Yes, no?
I ran Kingmaker briefly for you and Kevin and the gang.
Yeah.
But I haven't run like true hex crawl since the good old days when I was a wee lad. But yeah, as far as exploring the land and divulging what lies in that hex or the path you mentioned.
Yeah.
No, but I think that it's a good way to. I think it's a perfectly good way to game.
Oh, absolutely. Because I've looked at some of the things, the copious notes that Andy sent us, which is awesome. Again, he says, as I consider exploration, I'm really thinking of open wilderness/nature exploration, and not necessarily a more contained exploration of a constructed environment, dungeon, or enemy facility. And to me, oftentimes, the overland travel piece, the going from hex to hex, and the random encounter of, oh, there's forest trolls, oh, there's, river trolls, oh, there's giants here, oh, there's a fucking green dragon in the woods, and eventually getting to the Lost Dwarven Temple, or getting to the whatever the goal is. The groups I've gamed with over the years have always seen that as like, oh my god, what a pain in the ass. They kind of want to, we've talked about overland travel before, but that kind of exploring along the way has been kind of I don't even want to fucking deal with it. Just get me to where the action is. I don't want to deal with those components. I don't know if that's perhaps just my misunderstanding of what people want, or at least what my game groups have wanted over the years. But that's a feeling that I get from them. I don't know if have you had encountered the same thing?
Well, I think it can get to that point, and some people listening to this have probably encountered that, where it's like, this kind of sucks. It's a slog, or it's boring, or it's the game master that says you travel, and you travel some more. Okay, what are you going to do? It's the end of the day. I guess we'll set up camp. Great. What's your watch? Okay. First night goes by. Nothing happened. Well, first watch goes by. Clink, clink. Nothing happens. Who's
This
on
is how you
second
get
watch?
guys like Doc who write on a piece of paper that say, I Greyhawk it. You know,
Right.
when they search a body, they've got a piece of paper that says, we set up camp, standard, SOP 1, SOP 2. You know, what's your night watch, SOP 3? You know, it becomes this repetitive almost, and I know some people love doing this still, but some of the old grognards, when you would go down a dungeon corridor, every 10 feet you'd stop and swab the hallway with a thief tied on the end of a 10-foot rope like a cotton swab, trying to find traps, you know, or whatever it is that you did. This kind of monotonous bam, bam, bam. And I think that raw exploration like that, unless you uncover a point of interest of some kind, like, hey, I've explored, and lo and behold, I'm going to, you know, find the temple of whatever, or I'm supposed to find out where the bandits are camped somewhere here. But along the path, or even going to find the pass through the Iron Tooth Mountains, along the way you find a ruined temple or an outpost of something, or a bizarre tribe of goblins that are actually friendly and worship Tyr, or something weird. If you don't if you don't put those things in, to me anyway, if I don't throw those things in as a game master, I worry that I'm going to bore the hell out of my players. That's just going to be this very repetitive, mechanical, you know, mind-numbing. Yes, it's trees. Yes, I know it's wet. Yes, I know we didn't bring enough winter clothes. Yes, I know it's fucking cold. Oh, look, it's raining again. You've got to do something else to make it, you know, environmental hazards and that type of thing.
Yeah, I think you got to make it more than that, and I think that many folks will, if they had a huge map and it was all hex crawl, they're gonna every so often, maybe it's 2 or 3 hexes in a row, maybe it's one hex that's full of certain encounters, but eventually you're gonna have to take the part. No, you don't have to, but I think the players are going to expect you to take them into a different space. And I
Yes.
say space as in whatever it is. You're gonna go from where we're walking down this path, we're exploring off the beaten path, and we're going some more, and then you come across something that isn't that path. It's ruins, it's maybe an underground dungeon that was you come across. Maybe it's a tower and something's in the tower, or it's
or bizarre race of creatures. I mean, Andy
yeah.
mentions the old Star Frontier setting, the Volturnus, which is kind of a planetary hex crawl, and there's these bizarre octopoid people and some other creatures on the planet. Oh my God, there's an intelligent race here, and you found a thing, which is damn near a Star Trek. New encounter of the week for Star Trek, at least especially old school from what I recall of it. You know, Kirk, Spock, and the boys go, oh my God, there's a new life form. We have to go talk to it and figure something out. But you're right. I think to break up the monotony, basically, is what you're saying, right?
Yeah, and I also he poses the question, how do you make exploration interesting? And I think there's a method you have to kind of come to terms with, and it's either that, which we are talking, I think, more of an encounter based situation. And I think you got to get away from you travel and you travel and you travel some more. Because now, in addition to the encounter pieces, as you're doing the travel piece, it depends on how you want to get into the minutia. There's going to be some players just cannot stand it at all. Like, they're
Yes.
just, but so how do you meta that, or how do you get through it with it still being a factor? So many times, okay, roll weather. You have a weather table, roll on your weather table. It's shitty weather. Who's leading the group? And then who gets sick, who doesn't get sick. Maybe that plays a role in there.
Are you lost?
You get lost.
Who gets lost? And then
So what happens when they get lost? And then we start getting into things like, well, how much food did you pack? So I think sometimes we get into nobody wants to keep track of food and rations and arrows and their resources. But if you're getting into this type of game, sometimes it is a resource management piece.
Oh, I
to
agree.
it.
I agree. The other component, and Andy mentions the Isle of Dread, the old expert level X1, I believe it is, module that came with the old box set for expert, and I ran it bits and pieces ages back, And I usually would try to do it like, okay, you're shipwrecked. You start off with a shipwreck scenario. Now, for a con game, that works out really well. Everyone's shipwrecked. You need to get off the fucking island. Go. Well, exploration at that point, it absolutely makes sense. If you're stuck in a place. I did this to a group of characters one time. I had them teleport from one world to another. And it was like, hey, explore the world, try to figure it out. That group was pissed as hell. I think I talked about this ages back in a different episode. They were pissed as hell at me. Because like, oh my God, we didn't sign up to be blah, blah. They're really crabby. Anyway, some people, I mean, doing that feels overly, even beyond Sean level railroad. Like, wait a minute, we were on a boat and we had no choice and you pretty much shipwrecked us on the Isle of Dread. Brett, you fucker. Now we're stuck on this island. Great. And I think that's a really good way, in my experience, to thinking back ages ago again to that type of scenario. I would think anyway it would be a fun way to make exploration necessary. That's it. You're shipwrecked on an island. What have you got? I only have what washed up on shore. The boat is destroyed. I got 6 barrels of this, 17 days worth of this food, X amount of rope, so many arrows and spears. Good luck, adventurers. Oh, and wizard, that's all you have, or what's on you, or cleric, or planetary. You're crash landing on a planet. What are you gonna do? I think that can be fun. I know some people probably would balk at it, but I think nothing else as a conceit right out of the gate, say we're going to do a stranded survivor thing. Some people might want to know that up front, and other people may be willing to be shocked.
Well, that's the thing about this whole thing, right? Is are you going to come up with the pretext of your campaign to everybody before you kick it off? Like, some game masters want to kind of, hey, trust me, right? I'm gonna create something that's gonna be fun, and some players are like, all right, man, sounds good. And then they run with it, and it's like, oh, it's fantastic. Other times, they gotta kind of know is it all gonna be urban like Streets of Avalon? And Brett can go, yeah, it's all urban. You can be parts of these special interest groups, and it's all politicking. Okay, that is a different game than this.
Yes.
Right? So that's probably why your people were pissed, Brett, because you're like, fuck, trust me. And they were like, okay. And then it was, wah, wah.
I've honestly, over the years, now that you mention this is coming to mind, that is actually my preferred method with my home group. Is like, I got a really good idea, make some characters, we're going to start somewhere, and we're going to take you somewhere. It'll be fun. If it sucks, we'll bail. All right, let's go. And we've had some misses where like, this is no fun, Brett. Fuck. All right, start over. Because I've known these guys for over 25 years now. Whatever. We start over. But in most cases, people are like, okay, it's pretty good. I hope we amp up the, turn up this knob or tweak this other one back. We're in a good place. Let's keep going. But even if you were to take it to, like, hey, wandering through the forest, going to find the blah, blah, blah. Everyone falls through a sinkhole, and you're stuck in the Underdark. Get out, kids. I did that to my boys a while back. They were adventuring, and in this ancient dwarven city, excuse me, avalanche occurs, craziness through this big fight, and they're cut off. Every way they had back out is through the rubble, and they're like, we can't dig through that. Fuck. So it was like just an Underdark exploration crawl. How the hell do we get out of here? And which is tantamount to being crashed on a desert island.
You know what I call that, Brett?
What? There it is.
Yeah, it's the Brett Railroad. There's an avalanche, and there's you can't get to the right, you can't get to the left, and you can't go back.
You can either go to the place you've never been before, which is dark and dangerous, or stay here and starve to death. What do you want to do? Well, you have options. I don't know what you're complaining about.
That's right. You always have a choice.
You always have a choice. You can stay here and die. It's up to you. I don't care.
Or you can move forward. Duh. Yeah.
The other piece that, so those components, and honestly, I really think, I started reading the notes that Andy gave us and thinking about it before the show today, and I don't know if I've ever done it really well, because it's always been like, hey, we're going to take them through a thing for it's always been like a short period of exploration, then to the actual thing. I've never had, I never had exploration be the goal. Even if you're in the Underdark, the goal is survive, is you're getting out. You're not down there, my counter and AJ weren't just roaming around, oh, I wonder what these stalagmites are. Oh, I wonder if we'll find some Darrow. No, they weren't doing that. They were like, I get the fuck out of here, before we get eaten and killed. And even back in my memory to the Isle of Dread, it was, I get the fuck off the island. What does it take to get a boat? Or find a magic way to fly out of here. I hate this shit. It was never really a, hey, we're here, let's find out what it is. I'm positive somebody somewhere said, you know what, I could be king of the Isle of Dread, or I could be the sorceress supreme of the Isle of Dread, and then she goes forth, conquers the Isle of Dread, and she's the most, the most powerful being on the Isle of Dread, and she just kicks everybody else's ass. That's completely plausible, too. I just haven't had a group want to do that.
So, one of the things that Andy brings up that I want to just touch on quick, because we're going from one to the other, and I want to skip this. So,
No, go ahead.
He references Savage Worlds quite a bit in his email. But one of the things he mentioned was, what's the role of the Savage Worlds dramatic task and other mechanics? Do other systems employ exploration mechanics or mechanics that can be employed for exploration and also for scavenging and hunting? So one of the things that Savage Worlds has is I believe the interlude, if I'm not mistaken. And so that is where it's a social thing where if you have kind of a lull in the action, some adventures have this built into it. It's part of the core book that you can kind of throw it down is, so for example, in the your imagination, insert imagination. God, I just get their freaking company wrong every time, and Eric Lamoureux always corrects me. The game that I run, forget about it. So if nothing's like it's a road trip. Sometimes not everything's happening all the time, but it's a road trip. You flip cards, and whatever suit you get will tell you what type of interlude kind of comes up. And basically, what it is it may say you could assign it to a player character, or they can volunteer. Like, hey, I'm up for that, right? So if I say, hey, here's what an interlude is. Anybody interested in doing that? They may say, sure. And if they don't, they're like, what is that? So you flip a card, and then based on this particular adventure or module, it'll say, have one of your characters explain a botched job that they were on. So it's a role-playing moment, right? So they they're driving down the road, and one of the guys brings up, hey, remember that time in Philadelphia?
Yeah, okay.
Right? And then you could play off of each other if you got good player characters to do that. So one of the things so going back to that, so if you're traveling some more and you set up camp, maybe you interject what would be considered an interlude, whether you're playing a D&D system or something else, could be Savage Worlds, but you could just simply state, like, hey, why don't you bring up that one time that you almost lost your life? Or you were partnered with one of the group and you found yourself lost.
Emergent character background.
Of something like that.
Something like that.
Right. But so it can go from like, well, it's about encounters, but you can always just get it to be a bonding experience between the player characters. Because I think we just assume we know each other and everything's great and we have no problems with each other, no philosophical differences. And then there's some groups that play that like thousandfold.
Yeah, you could have somebody who's, in a forget about type of situation where you have a flat tire while you're out there changing it. You flip the card to go, hey, Fat Tony, tell him, this reminds me about that time when you guys had that other flat tire on that job in Philly. And whoever's playing Fat Tony goes, yeah, I remember that. Don't you remember that, little Jimmy? And then you guys get to go back and forth and do something that a quote-unquote boring encounter, if you have a flat tire, it takes you D10 rounds to fix, becomes some bonding moment where you're talking about a thing.
Or you do Baron Munchausen.
Okay.
And you start it off with, you start out talking about a botched job or the time you got lost or you almost got killed. And then the goal is it goes around and you have to do the one story before you.
In a game like Savage Worlds, you've got bennies to hand out. That was awesome. Clink.
Right.
You can throw bennies at people for that.
And so, or you could have some type of incentive, inspiration you can throw
Yep.
at in 5e or whatever it is, or you could all just sit there and whoever's the best, maybe the table votes on it. And then some of those things can be like the most hilarious, memorable moments.
That's a very good point, yeah.
Of a game session or even just a campaign. Like, oh yeah, we did this and that. But remember, we're sitting around that stupid campfire and we all came up with who had the tallest tale of doing this or that. Or you play Baron Munchausen, you have the same, you explain the experience somebody had, but it's the goal for the next person to take that same exact experience but manipulate it
Yeah.
into a
Yeah,
different
yeah.
version, right?
You know what's interesting, and you bring this up, and I saw this in Andy's notes to us and whatnot. And I mean, this is shocking to you, Sean, and to listeners of the show, of course. But I don't often, when it comes to the rules for the actual mechanics for travel, downtime, and some of those pieces, I have always felt, probably due to my, not remembering those rules at the time, or for whatever reason, I don't know where this got ingrained in me, was that as the game master, it was my job to come up with that stuff, or to invoke that type of feeling, opportunity, whatever it was. So I think this is from a Brett perspective, excuse me, and perhaps even for others, is, I should crack out the 5e rule, or if I was playing First Ed, what I have the Wilderness Survival Guide, I have these books, I have stuff, there are mechanics in a lot of these game systems for exactly this type of exploration. And even if your Savage Worlds exploration rules, I really like the ones out of this game system a little bit better. There's no reason you can't steal those. And I guess where I'm getting at, Sean, is if there are mechanics that would help make exploration fun, enjoyable, random, thrilling, whatever, it's not just on you and I as game masters to invoke or enforce that fun, thrilling, random whateverness of the exploration. If there are decent mechanics out there, why not use them? It takes a load off, right? I mean, that's what I'm hearing you say with the forget about it component, right? You flip that card, hey, I can interject this thing. Hey, if there's rules for, how ocean travel works, or how you, spend X number of days in the wilderness, whatever, why not utilize those mechanics instead of trying to make it up on your own? For some reason, I think I've always tried to do that because it felt more authentic, perhaps, than a random table. But maybe I need to rethink that now that we're talking about this. Because you play by the rules more than I do. I think that's a fact.
Well, I don't know, man. I think so, maybe.
Did what I say make sense, though? I mean, I think perhaps myself and maybe other people who struggle with it, or at least me, and maybe other people probably not like me, thank God for them, poor bastards. But if I'm not leveraging a mechanic that could be making this component of my job as game master easier, that's just silly. If there's decent exploration mechanics out there for the game system I'm running, damn it, I should probably give them a shot. It's kind of like those rules we never use. We talked about that a while back. Grappling or encumbrance we hit on. And if there are better rules to help do it, I mean, I've got shelves and shelves of game books. Dig up some decent mechanics for exploration and use them. See how they play.
Yeah, and I think with some of the older games, like even our friend Jason Hubbs talks about on Hobbs and Friends of the OSR, it's very I think it's coming up with a ruling, right? Here's how we're going to kind of do it. Sound good? Everybody's like, yep, that sounds good. And you kind of streamline it, make it fast and smooth.
Yeah.
And then there are some where it's like, okay, well, for every 5 miles, you get to 5 miles and then you're getting into Constitution. And if you're past your Constitution, then you suffer a level of fatigue. And if you're fatigued, you're taking, a disadvantage on X or Y, or you're taking a minus on certain things. Then it becomes mechanical. And so I think sometimes you can certainly use the rules, but I also think that it depends on the nuances of the game that you're trying to create, where it's maybe your group is more free flowing.
Yeah.
They don't want to get into the bogging of that. And then there's some that are like, they eat that crap up. Like, oh, I love this. Okay, you know?
I think that goes to the buy-in component, right? If you,
Yeah.
hey, surprise, guess what? You're all shipwrecked. Motherfucker. I didn't want to be shipwrecked. I thought we were going to, stop the Storm Queen. How come we're shipwrecked, you asshole? Then you take a game.
Take that anger out and try to get off the island, man. Like,
Take that anger out and remove the DMG from my throat, and please try to get off the island instead.
punch your fists into the sand on the beach.
In
Look
rage.
up into the sky and yell.
Curse
Be
the
pissed
gods.
off. Right.
Yeah. So I think I think if you get the group's buy-in, I know that some people aren't like that. They're like, no, just fuck it. You do what you got to do, and that's just what happens. But I think if you have the group's buy-in on this thing, like, look, this is what we're going to do, and this is how we're going to do it. And then you could say things like, hey, look, I've got this mechanics system for exploration, with cards to flip to help do interludes, or using downtime after X number of days. Or, hey, after X number of miles, we'll roll on this chart, or we'll do this thing. And then you can have the player say, hey, after this, the ranger's in point, he rolls on the chart. The guy's in the back, she rolls on the chart. This character, she does this, he does this, whatever. So you can get people engaged, even if there are random charts involved, having them do some chart rolling and some of that stuff for you. I think some of the... with your wide open, sandboxy, truly just really walking around the world of Skyrim, as my kids like to do, and just see what's in every freaking corner of it, I find that more people I've talked to have a lot of fun doing that in a video game because they like the visual components of it, and like, oh, neat, there's a thing here. But if you do that and then take that piece, which what Sean and I were kind of alluding to or talking directly to earlier, is you sprinkle in a lost grave, a crypt, the lost silver mine, a dragon's hoard, a forgotten dead giant's carcass or something. You sprinkle those really interesting components throughout the exploration, which are GM fiat-y, right, where I put the stuff in there for them to trip over or to find. I dole it out as needed. And then to spice up the quote-unquote dull moments, dig into those mechanics. If your group really wants to try to ad hoc or ad-lib their way through it, if that's something they want to do, great. But it really feels to me like this would be an opportunity, for me anyway, to dig back into the travel mechanics, exploration pieces of it, and see what kind of wisdom I can find in there. Even if what that does is provide more juice for what the next idea could be, instead of having to come with everything cold.
Now, one of the things he asks as well is what is the benefit to PCs who explore? Now, one of the things we got to get over, and I think we've probably, he may be pulling his hair out listening to this, because going from point A to point B through a hex crawl of some kind or navigating yourself to a particular destination, I don't think is what Andy is getting at, right? That incorporates some of what we're talking about, but going back to genuinely tasked to explore and what is the big payoff is he outlines. And I think the one big reason, and you could look at history for this, is you're either trying to find a quicker passage, you've heard of rumors of some other far off land deep in resources or whatever that is, and you're either going to do it on your own because you're curious and you may think there's a windfall of some kind, or you're tasked to do it by some authority.
Yeah, some people did it for money, for fame, which could lead to money. Some just because they're explorers and that's what they do. Yeah, that concept of there has to be a better way to get through the Irontooth Mountains because, the dwarves guard this other thing and they charge an arm and a leg to get over the fucking mountains. If there has to be a better way through it. So now you have a political and a reason for the king, queen, somebody to go, hey, you asshole adventurers, go out there and find another way because I'm sick of dealing with this. Or, hey, there has to be a better way, on our trade route or whatever. We keep getting hit with this problem. How do we get around it? There's got to be a better way to do it. Shortcut to India. Hey, lo and behold, hey, look, there's America. Look what I, quote-unquote, discovered. A land full of people.
Or in Kingmaker, it's you're given a charter and you have all this land that is known to be bandits, known to be never inhabited or settled, and it's kind of the bandit lands, and you're tasked to go there and map it all out and get rid of any of the bandits, clear the land, and claim it for the king.
The other component too is if you do the whole westward expansion component is like, look, you go out there and stake a claim, you can build your own kingdom.
Sure.
It's wide open. The line ends here. If you go, and this would again, if you've got the buy-in from the group, is like, look, you guys can start from. You take something, as Hobbes would say, like Adventurer, Conqueror, King. I could start you as plebes here, as adventurer types, and if you do this exploration piece, and your group is built around the fact that we would rather, instead of being ruled by this jackass of a duke or king or queen or whomever, we'd rather go out into the wilderness and forge our own kingdom. You can totally do that. And if that's a goal, a payoff component can be, look, we, even planetary wide, look, I left Earth. We don't want to go to Mars. We don't want to go here. We don't want to go there. We're going to go find somewhere else where we can be in charge, have money, make blah, 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 or whatever. And you could do that type of thing. There are plenty of pieces across the American West and into Canada and so on, as the Hudson's Bay Company and these different groups would come in and try to carve out areas where they could have their own little kingdoms of trade routes and all this, fur trading and blah, 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 where they would then take the money, send it back to England, take the pelts, do whatever they got to do with it. But people made and lost fortunes in that way. It's like gold boom rush, the gold rush in Alaska and California and all that stuff. You could be the person who says, you know what, I could go build a city if I do this right. So that could be another, from a payoff perspective, a thing that the group may or may not want to do. Especially if you've never done a king builder scenario, right? You started off as nothing. Look, this entire concept here, guys, is to work your way from quote-unquote first level to be kings of Volturnus. Is that something that's interesting to you? That's a path. That could be fun.
So one of the things he also poses is how much information about the area of exploration do the PCs have before setting out?
I think depending on the environment, one of the more interesting pieces, even if you take some of the sci-fi movies and stuff, what do you know about this planet? Well, it's mostly this, 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 and this. Then you land there. Oh, shit, there's aliens. Oh, shit, there's an ancient civilization. What do you know about this forest? Well, it's deep, it's dark, it's full of monsters. Okay. Having really bad information can be just as fun for the player characters as having really, really good information, or missing information, or conflicting information, which is even better, right? Everything says that this mountain is 50 miles due west from this village, except for this piece of information which says it's straight south of here. What? How can a mountain be in two different locations? Well, two different explorers. I don't know. We're supposed to get to this mountain. King said. I think having the opportunity to do research can be fun. All those characters with those kick-ass knowledge, skills, and so forth, where they can visit the library, talk to a merchant, talk to the local trappers and hunters who've been out there, the people who have gone to the desert planet of Arrakis and talked to the people, or whatever the case is. They've been places, they've seen things, pulled data directly from the mouth and of those adventures, and they say, all right, we're going there, and this is what we know to be true. Kind of a Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy type of thing, right? Here's what I know, and then you show up and go, wow, this is not really how this works at all. I didn't know that. So I think depending how much your group is willing to be ignorant or walk around with what they think to be knowledge, could possibly guide you. I mean, some groups don't like being lied to; they have a hard time with that.
Or you get a player character that you bestow upon them as being the research person that has the knowledge, but only certain bits. So maybe they have knowledge up to a particular point, and they know that they have to rendezvous with a particular contact. So an example would be, you got to get to the port, but from there, you have to gain passage via ship, and there's one ship and one captain that knows the straits well enough to navigate them, and it shouldn't be a problem. And the reputation is like not a big deal. And then you show up, and the captain is completely off their rocker, or they don't know.
Yeah.
Like it was a rumor, right? He had a feat that he had accomplished, and it got back, and he's maybe he's just worthless. Maybe before he was in his prime, and now he or she's a complete alcoholic.
Yeah, it's a total drunken son. Yeah, I used to be something 50 years ago.
Can't even function.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
If
Then what are you gonna do?
This also reminds me of the Brendan Fraser movie, The Mummy, which was back in early 2000s. I can't remember when the hell that was. But there's a point in there. There's Brendan Fraser and his group, and there's a rival group that's digging through this tomb, looking for loot and whatnot. And they have, the Egyptologists with them. They've got a bunch of American go-getters who are out there tearing stuff down, breaking things up, and trying to get loot. And they've got one Egyptologist with them who's like, whoa, calm down. I can read that. He's very, very important because he's the person who can translate and read and do those things. Excuse me. So I guess what you're saying reminds me of just because you're doing hardcore exploring doesn't mean there's no room for the sage. There's no room for that player who always likes to have her characters be super book smart, or that guy who really wants to be the linguist. You could still really need that stuff, especially if you're going into parts unknown and you really don't know what you're going to be uncovering. Having somebody with all that knowledge, basically a walking library would be pretty damn handy to have. So I could totally see where that would be helpful. And I like one of the last things he mentioned is kind of that emergent character creation piece, which you touched on, but then the world building piece as they're exploring. And you're, as the characters are going through and finding out what this, that, and the other thing is, and as they start talking about their backstory, and wouldn't it be cool if you're, as a game master, paying attention to that stuff, lo and behold, 2 hexes later, there's this thing you were looking for, or what have you. So I think, and even the concept of having them start as adventurers and maybe end up being, petty dukes or robber barons of their own in some crazy far off planet or portion of the jungle or whatever, that's some world building stuff right there. They've changed everything about the location around them by becoming a power of some sort. So that's pretty cool.
I think as game masters, we try to have as many answers to as many questions that the player characters are going to pose and encounter. And there's some games, some podcasts out there. I think even Stu and the gang over at Happy Jacks present the players with a bunch of problems. That just do that and let them come up with the solutions. So don't try to overthink. Like, well, how do you make exploring exciting, and how should I handle this, and what's their motivation, and what's in it for them, and this and that. And I think sometimes we get too caught up in the details, and I'm guilty of this myself. I get caught up with like the nuances. I mean, just even getting a Wes March's game off the ground, overanalyzing that stuff and not moving forward. I mean, you give them a map. That map doesn't need to be right. Like,
oh,
You
absolutely
sketch
not.
it out on a piece of paper and they give you this map. It's been researched for, they just had a ranger come back and had it all mapped out. Here it goes. And then you start traveling and you're following the map. You come to a big ass freaking mountain and it's not on the map. And there's only, you can go 100 miles around it or 100, or you can go through it.
Like, you can do crazy ass shit. I mean, the people in like the Aliens movies, when they showed up in the very first Alien movie, they had no expectation of what the hell they found. You've got somebody you got your character wandering through the forest. They're heading to the Dwarven mines, and they come upon a huge statue to Thor. It's just there. The fuck is this thing doing here? You could throw weird ass shit like the thunk. What is this here for? I don't know. Let's look around. Key off whatever it is. It's a problem.
Right.
Why is it there is the problem. You don't have to have the answer. I think that's a damn good point. I've done this many times with traps and magic items and just different conundrums to throw at people. Like, what's this there for? You tell me. You figure it out. I am not telling you. I want to make a skill check. Does it have? What are you trying to find? Well, I want to know the answer. That's a shitty question. No. What exactly are you trying to do with that alchemy check? Was the stone something we've ever seen before? Maybe a rock lore. Nope, sorry. Not seeing the stone before. It doesn't belong here. Well, that's how the fuck did the statue get here? They can spin around that for hours on end while you sip beer and laugh at their shenanigans. So, yeah, no, I think you're right, Sean. That is a very good point. If exploration is the key and you throw something out, whatever it might be, whatever the problem is, hey, there's a bridge here. Why is there a bridge here? We haven't seen anything people have made in forever. Why is this here? I don't know. Does it look sturdy? Looks sturdy. What do you want to do? It's a problem, right? It doesn't. You don't have to give them all the answers or have all the answers yourself. Let them sort it out and world build as they do it, because as they figure out why the bridge is there. How's it made? Mostly vines, blah blah blah. Okay. Not work? Yes, it has really, really good knots. Okay, smart people. They start they're building, and next thing you know, you've got an entire village of, crafty bridge building elves that live in the trees, which you didn't know you had before, but the players just fed it to you.
Or even just, the motivation piece, right? You got to set it up. Why are they going to go and explore? What are they doing? Man, just give it to the players. Here's the deal. You're going to be tasked to go and explore this land. I need each one of you to have a reason why you're on this expedition. And I think you'd be surprised at players just feeding you it. I was in prison. The only way I could get out if I went on this stupid expedition.
Yeah,
it was my key to freedom.
It was prisoner in Vietnam. I had no other option. That's why I'm here.
Yeah, it was that or the block.
Yeah,
right. I will take my chances in a far off land full of dangerous creatures than the edge of a blade. Hey, I'm in service to one of the lords. They volunteered me, and of course, I got to do what I got to do. I mean, players sometimes, they don't sell them short. Let them map out some of this crap and have them come up with some of the details that you're going to have to come up with. That's the beauty of the West Marches, man. Where do you want to go? Overseas.
This is a gentler way of our kick the players' asses comments from earlier in the show. Let's see what you got to do. Instead of coming down hard on them, give them a problem. Let them fix it for you.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Well, man, I think we beat the hell out of this. Andy, I know we probably missed.
We didn't address every question.
Yes.
Line by line, and a lot of it had to do with some of Savage Worlds was mentioned quite a bit, and Fate, and some of the mechanics of the games. And I think we were hitting it more at high level, depending on no matter what system you're using.
So, Andy, if we missed something, if you got some key pieces you want to make sure that we call out, let us know. And anybody else who's listened, if you go through this, you're like, I think they're full of shit. Hey, I think Brett's right. Make sure you say Brett is right, because that's helpful. Or if you think Sean is right, you can say that too. That's helpful for Sean. But anyway, let us know what you think, or if you've got a better way to do this. I'm certain people have done it before and had really good success using mechanics and using ad-lib stuff or some bizarre combination thereof. I mean, we can always come out with, we've done something similar or whatever. And I think some of the interesting component of it might be, how long has it happened, right? How long of a campaign, is it a portion of a campaign, or has the entire campaign been about exploration? I think we're looking for that grander answer here. Is it fun, and how do you make it such? So interesting stuff, man. Thank you, Andy.
Yes, thanks so much, Andy. Let's get into die roll.
Let's do that.
All right, Brett. I'll let you do some of the listeners this week.
Yeah, I'm out. Otherwise, I didn't have a whole lot.
My only one for this week. New D&D movie in 2021.
I did see that. Interesting.
What?
Yeah.
Can only suck half as much as some of the other ones. True confession. Sean has not seen a D&D movie.
That's all right. You'll be all right.
Yeah, I hope so.
So link in the show notes there.
Yeah.
All right. So what does Eli tell us? Eli ensures us we're aware of a Zavoya RPG, which has some of the best encounter maps around. Link in the show notes. I had not taken a look at this until the show, and
she puts out some pretty nice maps.
Holy crap! This is some very pretty good, nice encounter maps. The cool part with encounter maps like this, even if you're going theater of the mind, you slap this stuff out there, and you don't have minis, it's okay. It's just having these visuals are really, really cool. So thank you, Eli. That's good stuff.
Yeah.
And since Sky Slayton is a Sean fan, I'll let Sean read about these. I'm not reading these.
Yeah. He and I have become good buddies.
You guys are in cahoots. That's what this is.
Chris Guerin's blog, where Chris has a list of free RPGs, and that list is no freaking joke. So if you're looking like, hey, I can't get into gaming, or maybe a friend doesn't have a lot of money, but they still want a game, or you want to introduce them to a game, there's a butt ton of games at the link in the show notes.
Yeah, this is well over 20. It's got to be over 30.
Yeah.
It's got to be over 30. This is huge.
Yeah.
Very cool. Thanks, man.
And he continues with articles by Michael Beck and others on a blog. Blog articles to help game masters to include, some examples include world building, prep tools, GM's toolbox. So quite a resource there as well. Some of you may have known about this. I don't think we've ever brought it up. I did a search on our website, and I didn't bring up.
No, I've
Scott-
not seen it before.
Yeah, Sky had it bookmarked, and he's like, yeah, I should let you guys know about this since I've got it bookmarked. So check that out.
I mean, I was giving Sky some shit earlier because he was agreeing with you, but he has put out some really good links in the Google
good
Plus
die
community.
rolls,
Some
yeah.
really good die roll stuff. So, Sky and Eli, thank you both very much. Really appreciate it. This is all good stuff. I mean, Sean, I've said it before, and we'll continue to say it, is that a lot of people have done have done some really good stuff. I'd love to take credit for all of it, but if there's a better tool or method out there, even if you look at it and go, wow, I will only use an eighth of this, or I won't use any of it, or hey, I like a concept, but I don't want to do it this way, it's all worth looking at, man. It's some good stuff. Sweet.
What are you talking about next week, Brett?
You know, I'm not sure, Sean. I've got I've got so much EverCon crap on my brain to get ready for, making sure we got that all ticked and tight. I'm thinking about dungeon designing, potentially. And or potentially Tony Baker had asked us about, planning individual sessions, but how do we approach campaign planning, taking a concept from theory to session 0 onto like your final session 20 type of thing. So might be one of those. We'll see where we go.
Yeah, interesting.
Very good stuff.
All right. Well, this has been another episode of Gaming EBS. I'm one of your hosts, Sean.
And I'm Brett. Good night and good game and all.